get fitter and stronger. That was one of the big things, and it really helped us. But we had a good solid team. I really liked our team in lots of ways. But anyway, morning, Wally. I was just gonna call you and see if you'd maybe started another call or something. I just chatting with Leo here. He's over in Stockholm. He knows Peter Elander.
All right.
Hey, Wally.
I know 3 words. Gott nytt år. Happy New Year.
Thank you. Wow, great accent. Almost better than mine.
Okay. But listen, guys, I spent time talking to Greg Revak of Hockey IQ, and I sort of asked him to be a guest today. And Greg gave me a list of things that he could possibly talk about. Now, he's babysitting, as you can see. So he may have to leave occasionally, off and on, but
it's full daddy time. There's no babysitting. I don't get to give this kid back at any time.
Greg, I'm thinking you just want something by osmosis to drift into your little one there as we're talking.
Would be nice. Would be nice. We'll take any life lessons we can give him.
Yeah.
Now listen, Greg, when you talked yesterday, I wrote down about 6 different topics, and the one I'm going to throw out at you right now is the one on the importance of feel in performance, and feel versus technical. If you can't feel it, you can't improve. Can you talk about that topic? I don't know if it's in the future you've got it planned for your site, but I'm sure curious about it because I'm sort of a proponent of that, and I might be guilty of overcoaching and directing as opposed to letting them figure it out and feel it. Go ahead.
Yeah, the whole thing on feel is athletic feel is eventually what everything turns into. So like all of our instruction, all of our cueing and coaching ends up needing to be a feel for the game or feel for space, feel for technique, whatever it is. So for me, I think one of the big things that I want to have more conversations around in our community is around cueing and where do we want to put players' focus. And then how does that affect developing feel? Like there's a great book that I absolutely love. It's called The Inner Game of Tennis, which I'm assuming a few of you may have read before. And it's fantastic. Like, best trash talk is just have someone, like you're playing tennis and you start telling them like about their elbow and, all these little technical stuff and they start getting in their own head and they self-destruct. Like that's really good because realistically, when we talk about cueing, we want to have cues that actually are leading to external. So like how far do we want, I was telling Wally about golf. I'm like, you don't really want to worry about keeping your right elbow tucked. Like that's great. Like usually it's going to help performance, but realistically you'd be rather wanting to cue a golfer to be like throwing a bucket of water out to a certain direction. Like that external cueing beyond themselves is actually going to lead better results rather than being like internally, like I got to put my foot here, I got to keep my elbow there, all of these little details that may go into the technique, but allowing it rather to come, like the technique to allow itself to develop on its own through athletic feel and that whole concept. So I'm curious if anyone else has dabbled with this or has some thoughts on
it. I've done a little bit of work in that area, but I experienced what you said. When I was coaching at the Oval, we went to a golf club as sort of a team building exercise with all the employees. And the golf pro did that. He gave us a 30-minute lesson that helped me hit that ball better than I'd ever hit it. And it was all based on feel. It was a whole methodology. I don't know that he used the bucket of water metaphor, but whatever he did, it was sort of like just processing and the feeling of doing the whole movement, and it worked quite effectively. The other thing I did, and it happened to be with Morris Lukovich golfing at a fundraiser for Hockey Canada. I wasn't golfing, just was riding karts and socializing with everybody, and I happened to join Morris, and everybody was off the course, and Morris was stewing about his stroke. And I did a little mental exercise with him that I've done with athletes where I just got him to think of his favorite coach. And of course, he picked Pat Quinn, and we talked about Pat. And I know Pat personally and just got some good vibes in the conversation about Pat, his personality, and that. And then I said, now just put that feeling of Pat in you, go up and hit the ball. And he did. Just felt good, felt easy, stroked the ball as well as he had all day, I guess. But those are my only two general examples. I haven't experienced it in coaching. I would sure like to get better at that because it is sort of it's a part of it that should be a major part. Tim, go ahead.
I've experienced it many times, and I'm sure everybody who's a golfer has. Go out to the driving range, first time in either a long time or first time during the year, and you don't know really where to focus your thoughts, so you just say, okay, just relax and swing. And inevitably, and this is truly my experience, it's like, wow, you're just hitting the ball extremely well. And the second you get inside your own head, like you hit a, maybe the next time you go to the range or you hit a bad one or two, now you're starting to think, oh, do I need to strengthen my grip, weaken my grip? Do I need to take it back lower or slower or wider? Or this, the second you start thinking about that, you lose the feel, and then it becomes, just totally random, it seems. So I definitely agree with Greg. It's a very real thing, and we all strive to. I hate it when players say I'm thinking too much, because you have to think when you're playing hockey, absolutely. But you want to make it sort of as automatic, read and react as you can. You don't want to overthink, but you definitely have to be thinking. And a lot of that read and react is feel, for situations you've seen before or been in before, or something the coaches have directed you to do. But, I wrote down as Greg was talking, does feel equal IQ or hockey IQ? And I believe it does to a large extent. Go ahead, Leo.
Yes, here. No, great topic. Very, very interesting. On my side, I'm coaching now 3 years, and I really see and understand the value of wording, what you say, how you say it, and the questions you're asking. At the beginning, as a coach, I would not say too much by lack of confidence and by fear of saying the wrong things. And now I see more and more that what I can say to my players, the guidance I give them, can have a huge impact on their mental, not health, but just the way they feel on the ice. And the second thing that I see as well is the importance of the brain. Now it's becoming more mainstream, but I would say breath work, meditation, all this work can really help players to have a better feel. Last week I had a guy coming to me, a player, saying like, I'm thinking too much, and he asks questions all the time. I see this as like, on his side, he needs reinsurance. He needs me to guide him in one way, tell him what he should do. And sometimes this is, I think, our job as coaches to say the right thing, but not saying too much, and let part of the feeling. Let them think and feel, and then go back to their feelings. So I think it's tough. Not no one is doing this, but maybe writing down things after practices. How do they feel? Why they felt that way? And try to develop over practices. Greg, your turn.
All right. So Tim, you actually reminded me of the story that I wanted to tell, and I had taken notes on earlier, which was like going to the idea of like, where do we want to put their attention? What are they thinking about? Because like you obviously hit it right on the head. Like we do need to think to play hockey, but what are we thinking about? Are we thinking about solving pressure? Are we thinking about, oh, I need to put more downforce for a better shot? Like, where is that? And same thing with like development. So the story I want to share is around skating development. So I had some kids go through just like an agility course of sorts, like skating activity, just like see all the different areas, like how do they mohawk, how do they turn, all of this. And this wasn't AAA, it wasn't AA, it wasn't A. This was like B-level hockey, so it was not great. Like you knew there was going to be some serious skill deficiencies. But rather than like lining up on the goal line, 4 lines, we're going to focus on stride length and all of this. I skipped that and went to the cueing of like, I just want you to feel that your upper body is always stacked on your lower body. Did the exact same thing again. And I had coaches coming over to me like, what just happened? Like it was a dramatic increase, palpable increase. Like you could tell right away. And the whole cueing process for the players was just make sure our upper body is properly stacked on our lower body. Like have that feel where you feel like your upper body is properly stacked on your foundation of your lower body. And that was the key component to make that breakthrough, rather than breaking down into bits and pieces. I got to teach stride length. Now I've got to teach balance. Now I got to teach outside edges. No, what is the area that we need to focus on? What's the cue and what's the feel?
And as you were chatting there, Greg, I'm just writing down. I just thinking, there's the technical area of the game, like physically shooting, passing, skating, and then there's the tactical area of the game. And for sure, technically, your feel for a skill needs to become as automatic and without thinking as possible, because you really, a player doesn't want to use up mental energy and focus on thinking about, oh, I got to get my hands here or there, or I got to do this or I got to do that, because that totally takes the focus off the tactical part, which does require reading, reacting, and thinking, and most importantly, and the Flames could learn from this, sort of an awareness of your responsibility within your team structure and system. And, the Flames are going down the same path they've been down for the last 2 years. They're getting leaky goaltending at the wrong time, but they're just leaky defensively. They just have way too much puck focus defensively. Puck goes up to the top. Everybody's focused on what that player is going to do, instead of, hey, my job down low is to maybe get good body position on a forward coming to the net. Maybe tie a stick up when the puck's coming through to the net. They have none of that awareness. So with respect to our conversation, yeah, like skill development, you need to develop a real automatic, non-thinking feel for the skills, so it doesn't interfere with your ability to take in what's going on tactically and execute your responsibility within your sort of team structure. You're muted, Wally.
Got it now. As Craig was speaking, I understand the principle of feel, because in coach education, we're taught biomechanics. And the first principle of biomechanics is stable balance. And that means the stacking idea, the upper body stacked over the lower body. Exactly that, Greg. And the example is trying to get up out of your chair without moving your shoulders or feet. And you can't until you get your weight over the center of gravity. So how you say it, the words you say, that little exercise I do at coaching clinics helps them appreciate the importance of biomechanics in that particular skill. Now, on the other side of what Tim said, how do teams get to think in unison and coordinating and intuitively react without hesitating in game situations? And Tom has experienced this. He's allowed me to do an autogenic relaxation visualization exercise with his teams over the years. And I picked it up my first year of sports psych at the University of Saskatchewan. And it was put together by Dr. Charles Vanek, who is the father of sports psychology from Prague. And that exercise, you tighten muscles, relax muscles, yoga breathe, and visualize and feel yourself performing well on the ice. That feeling state will often carry over to the next day, but I guarantee one thing, it'll give you a good sleep. So I think technically being able to develop the skill in a more efficient fashion by using feel, and then the best way to play well, make better decisions, is feel good. Leo, go ahead.
Talking about visualization, as you just mentioned here, when would be a good time to use it? I try to do it with my team just before games or the night before the game. I try to ask my players to lay down in the locker room for a couple of minutes, shut down the lights, play some native music. But I have the feeling that it's either too early or too late to do this. Would you guys have any tips on when to do that?
I think Tim is everything we do, coaches, teachers, leaders, is about the right stuff, the right amount, and the right time. I have no answer for that. I've only experimented with it upon a request, knowing that when teams are not succeeding, they're not feeling good, and they're not sleeping well, probably. So I really use it just the evening before, and I've never used it with a team in a concrete way, but I do send the video link out with my voice and that script, which we used the night before our gold medal final in the 2002 Olympics with the women's team. And I really believe that their performance state was ideal in that game. And I believe that exercise at least had them sleep well. And you're not hypnotized and you're not asleep. It's just finding that feeling state, just like in the heat of the moment of the sport. You can refocus, dial up, get back to what matters, and that's being your best. Craig, if you have anything to comment on, just feel free to chime in. Don't even bother putting your hand up because you've initiated the topic. So, Peter, we're talking with Greg Revak. Peter, are you driving or are you at home, Peter? Okay. Anyway, Tim, go ahead. We're talking about feel, the importance of feel versus technique in coaching.
Yeah, I was listening as you were talking there, Wally. Like I've used visualization, relaxation with teams, individually, and it can be really effective, especially if a player believes in it. And I've often had team sessions to introduce players to it. But really, to try to answer Leo's question, I've always felt like you give the players the tools and then you let them figure out, is it best for me to do this like an hour and a half before the game, right before I go for warm up, find a quiet spot, do it the night before, do it in the afternoon before a game. A lot of athletes, and it's really important to make the distinction between relaxation, which Wally was largely talking about in terms of, maybe helping the girls sleep the night before the game, and visualization, which really helps your mind prepare for the tasks that you're going to undertake during the game. And they're, of course, linked, and you use them together, but they can be used separately as well. You need to relax in order to visualize, but you could do purely relaxation exercises as well, as we all know. But I think it can be a really, really effective tool. And like I said, I have walked some teams through it, like as a pregame meeting, for instance, an hour and a half before the game. I've had some teams, we shut the lights off, we do some deep breathing to relax a bit, and then walk them through some scenarios in their mind, like a net front battle where you tie up a stick and deny a rebound, a race for a puck, a back check where you lift a stick and steal a puck. You walk them through actual physical situations that they're going to be encountering in the game, and you prepare the mind for those situations. And it can be a tremendously effective tool, like I say, especially if players believe in it, and not all players will. I think it's some hooey, but they would be wrong.
Yeah, in the Vanek script, part of the visualization is seeing yourself doing the things you do well to feel good.
That's critically important, I
Yeah.
think. Critically.
Now, the idea of coaching the things that they need to do better is really good, but my question is it reminding them of what they do well? Does it make them feel better? And that's the art of should I, shouldn't I? So I like your idea, Tim. In the end, when I've used this, I've just sent the link out. Players might use it, players might not use it. A few of Tom's players have told me they use it to go to sleep. I don't know. I just say it's there, make use of it, see how they find out about it. Ask them, I think, Leo, is probably the best thing. What works for them, and some things work for you that don't work for me, and it's an experiment, and that's what coaching is. It's you just change the way you do things and see what happens and go from there. Greg, do you have any comments on what we've been going on about here?
Yeah, I think when you're talking about visualization, it's really about like where are you putting your head, where are you putting your focus, and where are you seeking information in the environment. Like, I think that for me is the most important part if we're talking about visualization. It's like just, okay, I'm going to be in the situation. Where am I looking for information? Where do I see pressure coming from? Like, that's the important part. For me, when I started this conversation, it's really about like, how do we cue? How do we practice? How do we get players to improve their skills and their tactics through athletic feel, more so than like, I'm feeling good today type stuff. Like, how do you feel through an athletic environment? Or how do you feel through a technical improvement? I think that's the key for me, is just like, how do you do that? And how do we cue? And there's a great guy, I forget the book that he wrote. The name is Nick Winkelman. He currently is with Rugby Ireland. And he's got a great presentation. I'll have to find the link and put it in the chat here for everyone, around just like, how do you cue an athlete for improvement within the athletic space itself. He's more of a strength and conditioning type coach, that kind of stuff. So how does he go about in the gym cueing his players to do better, improve, whether it be maybe some sprinting, whether it be a squat, whatever it may be. So he's got a really cool book. Again, Nick Winkelman's the name. So I'll put the link in here, and it's really good. And I'll have to find the exact photo I'm thinking of like how you're cueing directs focus from internal to external, and like each step that he takes, and like what an example of that is. So I think that would be a really cool thing for us to riff on.
Peter Whitney.
Good morning, gentlemen. Morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Like, I really enjoy what you were saying. And I really think what it kind of gets down to is it's so important to actually know your players, because there will be some, like you said, Tim, that react to it, some that don't react to it. But I mean, really get to know your kids. Like, I had one boy on my team who, he was going to be an uncle, right? He's 23 years old. He's going to be an uncle for the first time. So excited about it. We talked about it. He knew that I cared about more than, hey, you know what? Are you going to back check tonight? Are you not going to turn the puck over? he knew that I actually cared about him. While it's a lot of work, and I get it, I mean, at the collegiate level, at the pro level, probably don't have as much time at the pro level, I'm guessing, but at the collegiate level, you do have more time to establish those kinds of relationships. And if you don't do that as a coach, you're missing out on something, because if they know you care about them as individuals and not just, all right, you're a tool to win games for me so I can move on in my career, better contract, whatever it may be, you're going to get more out of them, but you're also going to find out who will buy into what you're saying. And those are the guys I think you focus on initially. And if you have good team chemistry and atmosphere, they can at least bring some of those other guys or girls on board with what you're trying to get across to them.
Tim, before I get you to speak, well, I'm going to go and talk a bit about Morris Lukovich's languaging, because what you said relative to the players, and you used the word don't and something about back check things that maybe they had to do better. I'll get into that later, but Tim, go ahead with your train of thought.
No, it wasn't Wally. It wasn't coaching. It wasn't about being better. It was about literally seeing yourself in positive situations. On a back check where you stick lift and strip the puck, in a battle where you out battle somebody. It wasn't about don't. It was about encouraging them to see themselves winning a puck race or winning a battle.
I wasn't referring to you. I'm just referring to coaches in general that say don't do, don't do this, don't do that, and it affects how they feel. They have a negative focus and mindset to go out and have to perform because they're thinking about what not to do, and in the end they'll do it.
Yeah, and that's a
fundamental point I wanted to get across about feeling. I'm not debating that I'm misusing the word about don't. I know the purposeful use of it to do well, and those that do well that aren't feeling good, aren't sleeping well like the Flames, had better think about what they've done best to get feeling better. But if you harp on what they're not doing well, it ain't going to turn the corner, in my opinion, and I'm not coaching at that level at all. I'm just throwing out the idea of the importance of maintaining a focus, and feelings will control performance in the end.
Yeah,
excitement from feeling good.
And the languaging piece is, of course, very important, but a separate topic or a different topic. They're all linked together. The other thing I was, in thinking about is, as Greg was talking, for me, and we all know a lot of athletes are very superstitious, and that springs from a lack of control over the situation. They don't, you get nervous because you're not sure how things are going to go. And for me, I really found the relaxation and visualization in the afternoon of a game afforded me the luxury of like having a freer mind, like less nervous because I felt more prepared, because I walked through for 15, 20 minutes situations I was going to get in and executed properly in those situations. And it relieves some of the nervousness and moves you closer to an ideal performance state. And really importantly, I think it removes the dependence on superstitions to sort of prepare yourself for a game. Because superstitions can really backfire. If you like to tie your skates a certain way, or you like to do this or do that before the game, if something goes awry that you don't control, now the superstition backfires and makes you more nervous. It's like, oh geez, if I want to play well, I need this to happen, and this didn't happen today. So now you're more nervous instead of more prepared for the game. And so I think the relaxation and visualization can afford you a better sense of that you're in control and you're prepared, and relieve a dependence on superstition in the lead up to a game, because they're really critically important, I think.
Tim, I agree with what you said. And Leo, I think the key thing here for me is knowing the player, because whether or not I do it this way or that way, I'm going to do it the best way I know how. But if I know my players, I'll do it differently for some and let them figure out. You have to figure out what works for them. And it's not our way necessarily always working. If the art is just getting them to figure it out. Now, Greg, if you have anything else to add, I've got a couple things I could divert into, because I'm sure we could go the entire session on this topic, but I think we've got, we've managed to get out of our minds all the things I have anyway. But
yeah, I think we can keep it going. We have quite a bit to hit today, so I don't want to.
And I would
something
clarify
too much.
that it's not for Leo to figure out what's best for the players. It's for the players to figure out what's best for each of them individually, because it'll be different. I think that's really important too. Go ahead, Greg.
Wally, where would you like to go next? I have our list.
I'm looking at the notes from yesterday, and I said between periods, and I wrote down the word players' mental maps, body development, technical, tactical, and you use the word empathy. You picked any one of those things out of a hat, Greg, and take us where you may.
Yeah, so I want to talk on empathy. So I think we all talk about this in some shape or form, probably ad nauseum, but I just wanted to put a term out there and something I want to introduce to the hockey world, and even coaching world in general, but just the idea of empathy. And the way that I'm talking about it is either tactical empathy or technical empathy. So like technical empathy, for example, would be technical skills. How much weight do you put on a puck for your teammate? Like if you're throwing them a puck on a 2-on-1, how fast do you want that to be there? Like, for example, women's players tend to pass the puck a little bit too hard, where now you can't really do a one-timer. That might be a thing. Or if you're throwing a pass on a rush, do you put it in their front foot or off their back foot? Like Artemi Panarin loves it off his back foot. Or do you put it in a spot where it's going away from pressure? So like that would be kind of like the technical empathy, where it leads into the next play, understanding your teammate and what they need for the next play. Then tactical empathy would be around anything you do for a teammate. F2 driving to the net. That's an excellent example of empathy, right? You're probably not getting that puck, but you're making space for your team, right? You're doing work for the team. And there's many ways you can do that. That's just, I feel like, the one that everyone thinks about. And I think if we just use the word empathy, it's always a positive thing. Why can't we bring that into the sports realm and encourage players to show off empathy, which is just being aware and being a better teammate through technical and tactical lenses? I think that would be really cool and something I really want to have us open a conversation. I haven't seen anything about this pretty much anywhere. I read literally a sentence in a book that referenced it from Arsene Wenger, coaches Arsenal FC, or did, page 73 if anyone's looking for it, at the end of a paragraph, and that was it. And I was like, okay, this is a genius idea, and trying to now literally take it from a throwaway sentence and put it into the forefront of the hockey conversation.
Well, Greg, I think it's quite, I simplify it. The word empathy is caring. And if you're a teammate, if you're a true team, you care and will do what it takes for each other as well as you can to the best of your ability. And that the respect for each team member, the coach, the philosophy, the buying in, this is what prevents teams from succeeding. There's all kinds of distractions to it. But to me, I didn't really understand when you said technical and tactical. I'm just saying, I know all those technical and tactical things, but part of
Tom, can you enter mute?
You may not be muted. Good. At any rate, that's my point. I'm just saying that that's what you're saying, respecting how important you are to one another and care about one another in terms of doing things for one another, not for yourself, not thinking because you're distracted, whatever, but getting everybody on the same page. Does that make sense at all?
Yeah, and I find it just super annoying because I have a high school team and a lot of kids will just throw a pass and like my job's done when I throw the pass and it's like right into their teammates' feet. Like that's not how this works. Or like they make a really hard pass and they're 5 feet away from someone that's quicker than any human being could actually have a reaction time on. Like those are like two things that really annoy me. I'm like, your job's not done until that puck is successfully on the teammate's stick and they're in control of it. So I love doing like even just like I call it passing chaos. So I've got 4 lines in the neutral zone on each side or around the dot line, and you just can't pass to the line across from you. And watching how quickly a puck or two will just suddenly get lost or a line disappears. All you have to do is pass, follow, fill that line, and just like the non-care for what happens next is super obvious and something that I'm trying to rid of my own players. So that's something that my brain goes to.
Tom, I'd like you to chime in. I'm not sure if you've been listening or not. Tom, are you still on with us? Well, I think he's
Tom's, yeah, he's here.
Tom, I think what we're talking about, I'd like to comment, Tom, on your team. He's coaching a U13 team, Tom, and
15.
everything you're saying relative to they play together as a team better than any I've seen in my lifetime. Whether it's because there's empathy, I don't know what the word is, but they're on the same page, interconnected, interchanging, pressuring together. Tom, can you comment on this idea relative to the languaging and how you've done it?
Well, I think first of all, I've got a staff that talks to them nicely, and we talk to them like we're trying to help them get better, and that we think that they want to get better. I think that helps, and they're also, for their age group, it's really fun coaching them. I just sent out the practice plan, and I can do anything with this group that you can do with a pro team. That it might take 2 times for them to catch on, but they pay attention, and and they do stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I just think we don't bench kids and all this. Well, 2 kids missed 1 shift in a tournament because they wouldn't come off the ice. They kept taking other people's ice time, and they missed 1 shift. But generally, we try to talk about what they do, not who they are. And I think that's kind of important. But it's an exceptional group. Like they're like the one dad was an elite speed skater. Did he win a gold medal? Ireland. And another mother played for you at the Oval, maybe on the national team there. Tessa's mom. So they come from pretty good backgrounds, and the other one's dad played college hockey, and so it's kind of a combo of who they are. We try to talk to them.
Craig, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I don't really have much to add on this. I think it's all excellent stuff, and love the idea of getting everyone working together and not limiting ourselves. So I'm ready for the next, unless someone has something else to add.
Well, I've got one of the notes I've got down here is the between periods, and I only wrote it down because that's one of the things that I often deal with is what do coaches say or do between periods to affect performance, to create empathy, to get them on track to peak performance. Get, and I just wrote between periods down because we had the conversation, Craig. So anything you have in terms of communication, that regard, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the thing with between period communication is a lot of time it's extremely ineffective. Like we coach, like everyone thinks about the dramatics. Like coach comes in, kicks a trash can, screams, yells. Players don't actually listen, and then we go back and we just repeat the same thing, and nothing really changes. Similar to the idea of letting the players lead. Coming in with a question, but not like, oh, what went well, what didn't go well. We need to have some constraints to our question. It shouldn't be as open. Like what went really good on our power play, or whatever area that you want to turn their focus and attention to, would be super valuable rather than doing it too large, which then takes us, 2 minutes to get to really where we want to go. So I think that's super important, is asking the questions, but constraining them a little bit, making sure that when we do talk, it actually means something, or if we're going into specific tactics, whatever it is. I find in at least Columbus, Ohio area, coaches that I see tend to go in, spew like 5 or 6 things, and then walk out. And it takes up the entire time. Players don't have time to prepare themselves for the next period. There's too much information. It's just super ineffective, rather than maybe give 1 or 2 things, have a conversation on maybe a specific area, and then give the players the room back, rather than kind of being more coach centric where you're controlling everything. You're holding the whole conversation. You're taking up the whole time.
Craig, your point of being specific with the question, I doing HP high performance evaluations, I ask coaches to do this exercise of asking themselves, each other, what they liked, and then what do we have to do better generally. And they can go specific by zone, by special teams, whatever, if they wish, and go into the room and ask the players. The key is asking the players. Because if you don't ask them, you don't know what they think or understand. You can't coach them. You're out of touch with them without listening to them. So you're constantly pushing yourself upon them to do it the way you want. And that's sort of where I come from on it. But thanks for that specific question. And I'm not sure at what level. Tom's got 5 minutes between periods. Or you've got a full time now between periods at U15. So I'm sure that how much you use questioning is going to be a factor. But whatever you're doing, it's working. So I don't question anything.
Well, what we do is we give the first half of the break to the players, and then we go in last half and usually go and ask them what they think. But I think one thing we do, and I picked this up with Terry Johnson and Willie, when I was coaching with Terry, when he played in the American League, they play so many games, I don't know, it's him or somebody came up with the idea, go around the room and everybody say one thing that they're going to focus on, or the team should focus on, or whatever. And you go around the room and everybody, now their head's got to get there. And he said the first time they did it in the American League, the guys are kind of, but he says it's unbelievable that the next time they did it, they could tell that guys had thought about what they're going to say. But we go around the room before every game and sometimes ask for one word that you're going to focus on. And all the players kind of clap and slap their knees as they go around. And I think that kind of, if you weren't thinking about the game, it gets you into that. And also as a coach, you want to hear the same kind of words that you've been preaching, right? So if they're saying all kinds of things that you've been trying to teach, that's great. If they're not, then maybe you're not teaching that well. So that's really worked for us.
Thanks, Tom. Peter.
Yes, sir. All right. I think this is working. So for me, having coached at prep and at the NCAA level, what I've done so has been effective, and really just like what Tom was just talking to. Before the game, we go around the room. Tell me one thing that you're going to do, just like he said. The only thing that I would always say would be, and it can't be score a goal, because everything else we do is going to be, the goal is going to be the byproduct, hopefully, of everything else that we do, that you're talking about doing here. So that was always very effective. And then between periods, prep, you get 18 minutes, college, you get 20. And that would be similar to what Tom was saying. I give them 5 minutes to just kind of relax, get their helmets off, maybe grab a squirt, get a drink, right? And then go in. No more than, I'm not there for more than 3 or 4 minutes. Give me 2 things that we did well that period, just like was talked about. Gave us an answer for that. Then just before I left, and I'd say, oh, last thing, find one thing that you think that we need to improve upon. And then I would just walk out of the room, and I would leave them probably at that point about 8 minutes or so, where they now as a group could say, okay, we've talked, we know what we're doing well. And then you'd get them talking. You get them talking. So guys weren't sitting there and thinking like, oh man, I had a terrible period. Oh, that was a bad shift I had. So they're out of their own heads, and they're now as a group trying to solve a problem. That was always really effective for me.
And one other thing I just want to mention, I don't like it. They have to say, I'm going to make good plays. They can't say, I'm not going to give the puck away. So we want them to phrase it in a positive way.
Tim.
And I guess I would add to both those thoughts, which are good ones. I might caution to say you don't want your, in some ways, I guess it's about languaging. By saying, I don't want you to say you're going to score a goal, because you want your players thinking that they want to score a goal. But if one of them did say, I'm going to score today, then you could say, well, what's one thing you're going to do to help you score a goal today? Because you want those thoughts in their heads. And the same thing with Tom, I'm going to make good plays. Well, you want them to make good plays. So what's one thing you're going to do to help you make good plays? Have my head up, pass the puck well, pass it crisply, protect it well. Like, you want those thoughts in your head. So anyway, just
yeah, no, I think that makes sense. I think, not to speak for Tom too, but for me, like, we're going to score goals. That's something we've talked about prior. Like, that's a given. Yeah, we're going to score goals. So that's the reason we use that, because it's something that sometimes guys won't, or girls won't know what to say. I'm going to score a goal, and everybody gets behind that. They're excited that they are, but it's not really tangible. So, like, to Tom's point, like, more tangible things that we want them to actually be able to do, if in fact they say they're going to score a goal.
Yeah, and that's why you would direct, okay, what's one thing you're going to do to help you score a goal?
For sure.
Yeah,
100%.
Craig, anything else on this topic?
I love the focus on the process, and less on like, you need to try harder and more specifics. I love that. Like, okay, well, what are the specific areas that we need to try harder? Like, try harder is just too abstract for players, and being specific, I like where we're heading with that. And, whether it be we need an F2 middle driver, forecheck, we need F1, going to the puck quick. I think that's massive, and where I'd love to see people go is just be more specific in their coaching and not using blanket terms too often.
Yeah, one thing, just to follow up on that, Greg, one thing we always like to focus on, what we did with the Danish team and everything, it like you're saying, it's great that you want to work hard, and you say I'm going to work hard today. So we put the focus on, how am I going to know as a coach, or how are your teammates going to know that you're working hard today? What am I going to see? What are your teammates going to see, so that we know you're working hard? And then they might say, well, I have my feet moving back checking. I'm going to have my feet moving on a forecheck. I'm going to win a battle for the puck. I'm never going to quit. Then it turns their attention to the specific and the process instead of the generic. But what am I going to see that tells me I know you're working hard?
Craig, I call it pushing buttons. And one of the routines that I'm encouraging with girls hockey Calgary on the bench and doing it at spring camps where they have games and coaches are on the bench. And it's learning to provide specific feedback. We have a few coaches that yell from the bench and at what players should be doing. None of them are negative about what's going badly, but they're playing the game out loud instead of just playing the game and loud enough for the players at the bench to hear what the coach is thinking. So I'm trying to get them in the feedback. When players come off the ice and anything has been done well, provide a specific praise for the detail of what they did well, and others should hear it. And they should hear you identifying those good examples occurring as they happen on the bench for the teammates on the bench. I think that's a tremendous energy builder for a group, is the use of not just positive general feedback, but positive specific recognition, which is teaching them what you appreciate and have been practicing. So it's an art, it's a learning curve, and I think we can all get better at that. And it just depends on the age group, the level of play, and your own understanding as a coach in terms of what you're capable of doing. So that's my take on it. Craig, anything else? Can you?
No, that was beautiful. I love the conversation. I think we're all in agreement on it.
Yeah,
No.
one thing I just wanted to say is for this team stuff is Monday we're having a Halloween game. So the girls pick their own teams and they've decided what costumes to wear. So that's kind of a little fun thing that Jim and I have done over the years, the teams we coach.
Well, make sure I know the date, time, and place. I'm going to see the costumes.
Hopefully they're not scary in your next game.
Yeah, I don't know. I might be scared.
Craig, one of the other words you mentioned, things you mentioned, scoring on the penalty kill.
Yes, basically the idea of the power kill. The idea of like Logan O'Connor, for example, just scored 3 goals in 3 straight games shorthanded. How did he go about that? I think that's a cool idea of like seeing a funny puck and just sprinting up the ice, assuming that your teammates are going to get you the puck. Pretty neat. Too often we watch players and they get the puck, then they play hockey rather than play hockey and then the puck arrives at them. So I think that's a big difference that I see between low level and high level. Is high level assumes that you're going to get the puck and they're already positioning themselves for that, versus lower levels, they wait for the puck, they get it, and now I go play hockey and I go do something with it.
Well, thinking ahead.
I think the mindset of penalty kill is ice it. And the idea of scoring that's really quite extreme, but I've always thought every opportunity to take advantage of to score, you should on penalty kill, because they're not in a defensive frame of mind at all. So I know one of the things you've talked about, there's the costumes, Tom. the idea of possession on 5-on-5, that's an extreme, and PK possession, and that's not scoring on PK, but I'm sure, Craig, you could talk to Daryl Belfry's reference of the idea of possessing the puck to kill time on the power play, because teams are unprepared for that.
And to build off your idea of like just ice the puck, like I have a rule that I try to implement. You know, some players pick it up quicker than others. I call it the 2-step rule. Like if you get like a random loose puck, especially off a shot recovery, like you got to take 2 steps before you actually do anything with it. And often they just take 2 steps to open ice, and sometimes they fire it down, but a lot more times than not, they're like, oh, I don't need to throw this puck away, or like, oh, I'll toss it to the other corner where my defensive partner is, or maybe there's a forward streaking. And just like allowing the pause, as I call it, like the pause in your decision making. Like the event happens, you get a response, which equals the outcome. Well, within there, to make a better decision, you often need to just slow it down a little bit. So that's what I call the pause. And that's my way of trying to get the pause in our on ice decision making. It's just that 2-step rule where we're taking 2 steps to open ice, and then we can actually do something with it. Now, the top players will probably be able to already know the pressure, what's going on around them, but it really helps a lot with the bottom of the roster.
The key there, of course, is knowing when you can take 2 steps and when no. You just got to hammer it around and get it out. You need to know when. So that comes to obviously awareness. But one of the focuses for me whenever I'm coaching a team is the players off the puck, away from the puck, have to let the player who's battling for the puck know verbally, hey, Wally, you got time. Then you take the 2 steps. So if the players away from the puck are communicating time, then that player on the puck, their focus can turn to Greg's, hey, take 2 steps. So you have to know when you can and when you can't, because you can't always take 2 steps. And if you try to all the time, you're going to turn the puck over sometimes. So again, it's a hockey sense thing, but it's also a team skill to communicate the puck carrier out.
Working at the U13 level, Craig, the players are slowly catching on to the fact that the puck isn't a grenade. And they're starting to look and recognize the situation. But the general understanding is that skate with the puck, create time and space with it. So the evasive tight turn is the tactical skill to create time and space and moving your feet. So the 2-second roll of 2 steps, you're moving your feet. They all tie into the vision and seeing the situation and having a little more composure and to make decisions that are going to result in execution or decisions that are going to advance the puck up the ice together. So the idea of empathy to one another, to support the puck and to help your teammates and communicate verbally where you are. I'm not sure, Tom, to what degree your teams communicate out loud to each other, or is it just they're just reacting properly based on what they see?
I think we're like every coach trying to get players to help each other, and it's especially things like when you're going back for the puck. If you know whether you got pressure, you got time. It's like night and day, and so we encourage them to talk as much. But I think basically every coach does that. Try to get people to talk and help each other.
Does anyone have any more effective ways to help with on-ice communication? Like the thing that I've started to work on, it helps a little bit. I mean, it's still not a holy grail, but a piece is try to get rid of my whistle as much as possible, where the players have to look at each other to start an activity or a drill, and they have to take the ownership. So now they're all kind of like being forced to work with each other, rather than if you do a whistle, now everyone's based on the coach. Just finding simple ways to allow them to take the ownership and the onus, like because I'll let them not do anything. I'm like, so when are you guys going to start? And they have to slowly but surely figure out that, okay, coach isn't going to do it for me. I've got to take the ownership. I've got to take the onus to actually make this happen and work together. So we're both going, and it's not just one of us going down the ice 1-on-0, for example, that kind of stuff. The second piece I want to touch on, Wall, you mentioned about time and space. What gives us time? Is it just space? So really, are we talking about space? So maybe we should reframe that as space and speed rather than time and space. But that's an offshoot comment.
And Greg, I think one really simple thing you could, especially for, maybe under U15 level, one really simple thing you can do if you're doing a simple passing drill, whether deliberate or otherwise, you can demand that the players receiving the pass must call for the puck. And it's incumbent on the player passing the puck to not pass the puck if the player doesn't call for it. So I'm skating on the arc of the circle, doing a simple passing drill. If I don't call for the puck, the player that's supposed to pass to me doesn't pass to me, and now I don't get to take my shot. So, like, especially for younger players, it can help them sort of ingrain the idea of calling for the puck and helping people out. They're really simple.
Yeah. Tim,
The other thing.
Go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, the other thing that Tim, I love that because I love that phrase, demand the puck, just because it's such a strong phrase, and it really gets a point across of what you're trying to do. But the other thing too, with again, when you're coaching the younger kids, anytime you're doing that, and this maybe just my own pet peeve, but I'd love to know what the rest of you think about it, is I would like us to, as coaches, diligently work to eliminate the beaver slapping of the stick on the ice, because that's a way that kids use so they don't have to speak and communicate. It's sort of an easy out. And like I try to tell, especially the younger kids, when you're slapping your stick on the ice, it doesn't sound any different than when your opponent is slapping the stick on the ice. But you know your teammates, if they've got a name, if they've got a little nickname that you use. Verbalization, just an easy way to begin that whole piece. And you can start it with receiving a pass or getting a pass. Maybe you can start it with all the other aspects of the ice when someone's being forechecked hard, or like when Tim was talking about and the power play and your penalty killing, knowing that your team does have time and space. But that's just a little pet peeve of mine. I'd love to see that little piece eliminated at a young age.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to throw something out here that contradicts everything you guys have all said. I believe that yelling for a pass, calling for a pass, beaver slapping is not a good way of teaching support and timing. In other words, the players haven't connected. If you have to yell to remind them to pass, if they can't see you and you're behind them cycling, yeah. But eye contact is the key to communication. And the receiver must see the eyes of the passer. And he can call, but of yelling at minor hockey, kids will yell for the puck and beaver slap, and they're not open.
Right.
So the idea of timing and support and recognition of eye contact and empathy for that precedes the calling. Calling is under pressure, supporting and being available, letting them know you're there. And then it takes coaching. The coach might have to make suggestions about how to better cope with that situation together on the ice. But that's just my theory. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that totally, but I think that the first step is All right, you call for the pass, and maybe I give you the pass, and it gets intercepted because you weren't actually available for that pass. Say to the player, why make that pass? Well, he or she called for it. Okay, well, let's talk about that. Now, what you're talking about enters into it in a very concrete way. Well, they called for it, yes, but did you look? Did you get your head up? Did you see the situation? Did you read it? So, I mean, I think it's splitting hairs, but I think there's so many different ways. And again, I think it comes down to knowing different players. There are some players that are really, they really get it right off the bat, Wally, and they would understand about the eye contact and, okay, this is what I have to do. And then there's other players that are much more meat and potatoes where they just said pass when they call. So I'm passing when they call. So I think you have to know the players and know how to teach them. I think they're all going to be a little different.
I think it's a situation that we've talked about. Well, it applies to almost all situations. It's not either or. They work together. You know, learning to get your head up and identify and make eye contact is an important skill for players to learn. But verbal communication is also a very important, helpful skill, and they go together. It's you know, there are different situations where you know, one or the other is more effective, but it's not an either or. It's important to learn to do both. And my experience is, generally speaking, players are reluctant to use. Many players are reluctant to verbally communicate. You know, we used to have a general rule we talk about a lot when I was playing in St. Louis. It's, you know, especially for D partners, make your ears your eyes. Your ears become a pair of eyes if your teammates are communicating with you, and that's to the benefit of everybody. So they go together in my view.
I find it's beneficial to challenge the receivers to have the onus of being like the first person the puck receiver sees when they pick their head up. I've seen a lot of success with that. And players then have to think in their teammates' shoes, like, okay, where are they going to pick up their head? Where are they going? Where are they at? And just being able to read off their teammates well. So I find that to be a good piece of advice to give, or a good challenge to give players, is being the first person your teammate sees when they pick their head up.
Craig, Tom Malloy's team, and we've talked about this before, last year, he had a mother keeping pass completion stats. U13 girls, just that stat alone, the importance of the pass, it's just something that doesn't exist in minor hockey here. It's all coast to coast. So when we're talking about empathy, I think that's what the most important thing is: respect your teammates and the importance of the game, and passing precedes every other concern. You can pass stationary, you can pass moving in a drill deliberately. But in a game, the context of, are you open? Are you able to skate to space to see and scan the ice, as Sammy Joe Small mentioned 2 weeks ago with their U11s, scan the ice, get their heads up and look. So with Tom's group, I used the stat, if they completed the pass, in other words, it was made and caught, 2 points. If they looked up and were looking and attempting to make a pass, but didn't complete it, they got 1 for having their head up and looking. So that's what I'm talking about at U13. That's where they might be yelling for it versus understanding. Make it yourself obviously open by exaggerating your target, creating a receiving angle. And those are the finer points of, and I'm not sure how you get a feel for it, but it takes teamwork, empathy, and it takes eye contact and verbal communication. I agree. but at some age, Johanny Walston's drill sequence of stationary passing with 1, 2, 3 pucks, progressing to give and go shooting with 1 pass and timing, that progression to me is absolute biblical to the game of hockey at that age level, and it would help them become so much better at it than they are. Hal, I'd like to welcome you. You got on a little late. We've had Greg Revak on, and I had a phone call with Greg and wrote down a bunch of things, and you missed the talk on field, the importance of feel versus technique. We went into the idea of communication between periods and feedback, scoring on the PK, which led to possession on the PK and all kinds of other conversations, but it's been really, really great stuff. And Craig's line to me was, if they can't feel, you can't improve. And that was an excellent first part of our talk. Now, one other thing, Craig, here, you mentioned players' mental maps. So that terminology, before we lose you, you might have to feed or change the baby right away before we lose you. Can you get into your players' mental maps and what that means and how you use that?
Yeah, I found, particularly with the more elite players that I work with, that they're constantly working on building a mental map of the game. Their teammates, where they're at, opponents, where they're at, handedness of the other team, what part of the shift each player is in, general direction of movement, handedness of the player that's guarding them. Like, it gets more detailed the higher level of a player, less detailed for someone who's a little bit lower, but just getting players in the idea of building mental maps and loading information in so they can make quick decisions. They're constantly engaged 24/7 when they're out there on the ice, being able to play the game at the highest level they can do possible and improving those mental skills that make the game playing so much easier. So just the idea of helping players figure out what's the information that you need to put in your brain, where do you need to look, how are we scanning, what are we scanning for, and continuously working on building that. I found super important. I did a podcast with Marty St. Louis, and the level of detail that he goes into within his mental map was quite insane compared to everyone else that I've ever seen, including some other NHLers and professional players and NCAA hockey players that I've talked with. So I think that's an area that's not talked about enough, is how detailed players build their mental maps.
Craig, I feel that at the elite level, that's one thing, but I think in minor hockey, as soon as you start to play whole ice, you need a picture of structure of how you are going to be, where you're going to be in a situation, recognize your role, whether you're first, second, or third to that situation. So to me, mental mapping is the cue word of the structure. In other words, I use that claw, forecheck to begin teaching, read and act. So they spread out pressure, support, and time. And the same thing in the D zone, the shape of who's first, second, third, and how they will position as they learn to control their space from the inside out and keep the puck outside. So the mental map picture to me is give them a picture, let them figure it out at a young age. You're talking the pro mental map. Can you give me a specific example for some people that might be watching the game at that high a level where what separates those players with better mental maps?
Yeah, classic example would be like for a player that's playing one-on-one, like understanding the handedness of the defender that they have, and then how far they are into their shift. Like, do you want to push a pace? Are you longer in the shift? And now you're like, I don't want to. I just want to maintain possession for our team. What direction? Like, how does that dictate the next best play? So that'll be the mental map that they're building, is understanding the information that allows them to figure out what's the next best play, or make that like one-touch pass to the next teammate to keep things going. So for me, mental mapping is all about allowing the next best play, because you have the information, and how detailed it is dictates what you see as the next best play. Like the spinorama, like you're going behind a net and doing a spinorama backhand to a trailing teammate as everyone else goes to the other side of the net. Like that would be an example of building mental map and understanding handedness, and where people are on the ice.
So how does visualization play into that?
I would say just like understanding where to look and where to scan and how you're trying to acquire information.
Okay.
Because really the mental map is about the retention, right? You're putting things in your short-term memory that you can pull right away to make a play.
Yeah.
You know, make a decision, make that defensive stop, make that close down, whatever it may be. Like, you've seen this a million times, and boom, you're able to get a step ahead. Or you know that they're on their forehand, they don't like to use their backhand, so you're able to cheat a little bit to that direction. Or their handedness, they got one hand on the stick. Well, okay, it's not very strong. I'm going to blast through that. They're tired, so I'm going to be able to get a step on them. Things like that.
Now, to what degree at the elite level, their awareness of the nuances of the opposition and taking advantage of that, like how far ahead of are they from the mortal hockey players or the youth hockey players that just, like, to me, saying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is one thing, but some of the thinking that goes on at the highest levels in terms of effective execution, to me, is mind-boggling.
Yeah, or
So-
even like attacking man versus zone. Like if you go against a team that's playing man on man, like how do you create time and space for yourself? You know, you're working off the net, or you're running your check into a teammate or a teammate's check. You know, like how do you go about that versus a zone where you maybe just looking to pop up in a space at the right time? Like that's something that they are understanding and looking for. And it's like, okay, where are the spacing? How are teams playing us? That would be one like really tactical high level thing. And then you got your technical stuff of like, okay, maybe this player isn't the most comfortable on their backhand. If I push him here, I can get a good step on him. Or like, okay, as soon as they bobble it, they freak out and they don't look around. So I'm going to jump them.
Now, Craig, the last thing I was going to ask you about, because in all the notes I've written down, we've been able to really, I've got couple other things, but the one thing that I wrote down, just the word changes. Can you recall what you might think of changes?
Yeah, changes is one of the things we talked about, particularly in like tactical empathy, where like how you change, like how do you leave the ice? How do you enter the ice? Like leaving the ice, like everyone's tired. We're going for a wholesale. You want to go for a change as well, but you stay as the one person behind to force the play to the near side, which is the board side where your team's actually changing, and allowing that change to happen more smoothly and safely, rather than some of the times you see a stretch play to the far side and you got a wholesale, all 5 players getting caught and they're all scrambling as the other team's able to do a quick up. That would be one thing. And then going on the ice, like first guy on the ice goes and locks the far side, next guy locks the middle, and then the near side. Just like knowing those roles and making sure we're making good quality changes. The other piece that we had mentioned was about just like, do you really need to have all 5 guys back, or can we sneak in a change as that 5th player back checking and get a fresh body out there at least, and making sure that we're finding little ways to change better.
Tim.
So I think it's where the empathy comes in again, Greg, and you see it all the time. and lots of teams, like you say, going for a wholesale or going for a bad change, and the puck's still in your own defensive zone, and that player with the puck trying to initiate a breakout, get yourself out of the D zone, they need your help as a supporting player. Even though I'm really tired and I need to change, going for a wholesale at that point in time shows zero empathy for the player with the puck and zero empathy for sort of the team's situation, tactical situation on the ice. Like we used to always encourage the girls on the Danish team, like especially if you're the far winger away from the bench and you really need a change and you're really tired, but we have possession in our zone, go and stand at the red line. Instead of coming all the way across the ice where now we're playing 4-on-5, go and stand at the red line. Now I'm the player in the defensive zone. I can just fire you the puck. You can touch it in the other team's zone. Now we can all change. So you need to be in a more empathetic mindset where how can I help that player with the puck instead of abandoning the player with the puck, putting them in a poor situation and the team in a risky or poor situation. So it's where the empathy comes in again, I think.
That's a good idea.
It's really simple too. And it's something you could actually practice in a scrimmage. Say, okay, here's the way we're going to change, and you would maybe put a restrictor on the one team. Like you can't stand beside that player and cover them. Play your game, but it's really simple. Empathy again, very important. Player to player, coach to player.
Yeah, it's the ultimate.
I've got a situation that might be common. And I'm talking U13 girls. Some girls that have made the team have come over from boys hockey. They're bigger, faster, stronger, and not necessarily smarter, but they're definitely more talented than players on the team. And we're trying to get them to pass the puck, and they're at a different level than the other players, but yet they still have to be able to get past the puck when their teammate is open, especially ahead of them. So I'm advocating a headman rule and making sure that they recognize somebody's open and they attempt to realize the pass the puck in that situation. I think it's a real big part of team play, and as Tom has found out, it's getting results in terms of outcomes because it's so hard to defend teams that can pass. But I've had parents complain that this player should only play with the best players because the others can't do anything with the puck and she won't get it back. So I'm caught with that predicament of to what degree do you put the best players together so that they might be able to use each other more often and create that super line versus maybe three more balanced lines.
I personally love to put players that want to play make together, and then players that maybe are less so into that on their own line. Because if they're going to do their own thing, why not just do it themselves anyways with other people that are going to do similar, and then try to encourage them to get towards that line that actually wants to play make. So I don't know about how you guys like to build lines. I probably have a more dramatic difference in skill levels than you guys do. So it's extremely dramatic when it comes to talent level. And, one of my better players is one of those people that doesn't play make, but he kind of gets his own line and he doesn't play with the other best players because he wasn't going to use them anyways.
Tom, can you comment on your ability to create combinations that play together well?
Well, I think there's a little bit of if you've got a play ender and you put them with your player that passes a puck all the time, and they're going to get it and throw it away or whatever, kind of nullifying both players. So I try to put players together that complement each other. You know, it all depends what kind of a team you get. You know, you might have, if players are fairly similar, it's a lot easier than if you've got, you know, like night and day kind of a deal. So I try to get players that'll, you know, can try to complement each other.
Tom, your team at your level, there is a skill gap and a hockey sense gap, and every team is faced with that. Well, how do you manage to create a synergy of combinations where everybody can perform at their best and feel good about whoever they're playing with?
Well, with this particular team, we had we're playing around with the lines the first bunch of games, and then we've had the last, like, we've had an incredible amount of games because we had we played 2 exhibition games, and we had a tournament that we played 4 in 3 days, and then we went to Kelowna and played 6 in 4 days. So I think in 9 days we played 10 games. So we kind of saw who could, you know, play together, and we've stuck with those lines. You know, we might move them around a little bit. You know, we've basically stuck with those lines ever since. But they kind of have a synergy together. Sometimes, you know, they don't all have great puck skills. One girl that probably the fastest skater in the team, but she, you know, she has the most trouble with the puck. And she plays with 2 very good players. And yeah, I don't know. Every team is different, right? Depends what you got.
Peter.
Yeah, actually, my question is actually for Tom. Tom, when you were coaching at the pro level, or really at any level, I guess it really does apply, right? Once you find those combinations, what did you do, or anyone else actually chime in too, please? What did you do to accomplish that goal in that, okay, you tell Wally, you're the goal scorer. Peter, you're the guy that's got to be first in the corner to get the puck. That's your role is that. And then if the third person, your job, maybe it's Tim. Tim, you're the playmaker. Well, wait a minute, coach. I can score goals. Or wait a minute, coach. You know what? I'm really better when I'm making plays and I'm not the guy going in the corner. How do you sell them, or if you have run into that situation, on what you perceive as their strengths versus what they perceive as their strengths?
Well, I don't identify. I don't tell them those roles. I just you try to put players together that are like that. You know, what's a classic line as a passer, a scorer, and a mucker. You know, but you know, I don't say that to them because we try to play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, you know, the scorer might be in the corner first, so they've got to become good at mucking and getting the puck out. So, yeah.
So essentially, you're just putting together guys or gals in your head that, you know what, this group of 3 forwards can work well together, and they will figure out who has to do what. Confident that each one has the ability to do each of those things.
Yeah, like, you know, some people are scorers, and you know they'll get 10 shots and score 5 goals. Another guy get 10 shots and score 1 goal from the same place, right? It's just kind of something that happens. So I think that you practice everything with them, and I think it just kind of rises what they end up being good at. And I think the line also figures it out that we'd rather have F3, you know, deciding which guy should be slipped back into the shooting position. Probably the scorer should be there. You know, so.
Right. No, it's perfect. It's perfect. I just always wonder that, right? Because, you know, years back, right? Because that's the great thing about the sport is how everything evolves, right?
Yeah.
Life in general, but I think hockey seems to evolve. If you're really thinking through it, like everyone here is, at a much quicker pace sometimes in life. But it used to be, you're the guy that takes the body, You're the guy that passes the puck. You're the guy that scores, and that's what you do. So
Yeah.
evolving to this, I think, is so much honestly more fun for anybody that's playing the game. But
Oh yeah. Well, the game's changed so much. Like when I played, it was lane hockey, and the
right,
coach, every coach would live a different degree of it. But I played for coaches that would say, if I'm on left wing and I want to see white paint on your pants at the end of the game, that you didn't drift away from your lane. And the game right now is absolutely totally different. Just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Even if it's a defenseman, first one in the corner getting the puck. So,
Tom, I believe Ernie McLean was coaching in Estevan. He actually had a clothesline attached to the wingers. So they had to stay on their wings. And
yeah,
that's back in that era. So I really believe the art of line combinations is enhanced by you only line up at a position for the face-off.
Yeah.
After that, they'll naturally be whatever they are, wherever they are on the ice. But you can't wait for the goal scorer to get the puck. It's just going to be interchanging positions. And I struggle with parents affecting players saying, well, they've got to play center. They can't. And if they're not playing center, they feel it's unfair because that's where they want to play. And I'm just dealing with you only line up for a face-off. Yes, as a center, they may be the most skilled, best puck handling, smartest player. But in order to be really valuable as a team, all five have to interchange relative to what actually happens in front of them.
Yeah.
So that's
Just talking about
him.
Didn't Eddie Shore put a rope around the goalie's neck? And he just said, I don't want you flopping around like a beached whale, so that the goalie stayed up. Hasek wouldn't have lasted too long in that.
No, he wouldn't have. Okay, Greg, there's one last thing. You mentioned NHL tracking data. I wonder if you can comment on that so some of the listeners might be interested in.
Yeah, NHL Edge, it just came out and was released. So it's a lot of the tracking data. Doesn't track like zone entries or things like that. What it does, like skating speed, skating distance, shots, shot location, things like that. So NHL Edge is what it's called. EDGE, NHL Edge. So if you look that up, you'll be able to see some interesting stats, how fast players are. And I thought one of the interesting ones was Roman Josi was out of the top 60 defensemen, if you constrain it a little bit, was the slowest defenseman. Yet he's known as an elite rush player. Yet he's like 3 miles per hour off the fastest player or the fastest defenseman. I think Kel McCarr might have been fastest or top 3. And I thought that was a super interesting thing of like, maybe it's not about the skills itself. It's how do we utilize the skills or utilize our techniques and abilities, and how does it factor into how we perform. So super interesting for people to go check out and mess around with. And I thought that was a super interesting thing of just, it's how do we play the game it's truly important.
I really appreciate your screen share on that yesterday. It was amazing. And, stats at this level, trying to encourage all the teams to keep track of completed passes. Everybody keeps shots and goals and might record where they're taken from in terms of the number and who and whether it was wide, was blocked, was saved, or went in the net. But tracking passes makes everybody conscious, aware, thinking of that. And I really believe the team that passes the puck the most and the best will have the puck. They can't score. You're more than likely increasing your chances to win by possessing it. And the word with passing to me now, I'm adding it to it, it's empathy. you've got to really value that. It's not a skill; it's a tactical team tactic, and you can't defend it. So, Tom, your team, I don't know what your max number in a row is. I'd be curious if she would track those passes in a row and just put down those numbers randomly if they were in a row. But when your team last year did 7 in a row at that age, I said, wow, because they're not as talented as your team this year. That's they get the puck, they hound the puck, and they keep the puck and share it better than anybody I've seen. So congratulations, and looking forward to your game this weekend.
Yeah, well, we have a practice tonight, and we're going to, like, we start off with the Russian big moves that Yursinov's thing, and then we play a game of 2 passes at each end. But the rule is that you have to make 2 passes before you can score. But the rule is before they can pass, they have to make an escape move. So going on Greg's thing of moving your feet and taking a few strides. So an escape move, if they're going to do something, they have to do something before they pass. And that's the kind of thing we do all the time. And we're going to do the Johnson power play game as well. And what that is for you guys is like Wally gave me this idea. He'd seen Bob Johnson do it. So the power play is out there, and one player goes a defender. So we have black goals. If the Blacks are on the power play, one goal goes as hard as they can for about 10 seconds. I blow the whistle. They stay until the next player goes in, and they're always pressuring the puck, just so that better than having nobody in there and you pass around, whatever. And it's a good way to, kind of get them to move the puck around. And, so those are the kinds of things that we do. And it seems to work pretty good.
And those that are listening, when Bob Johnson did it with the Calgary Flames, he did an 1.5-hour power play clinic. That drill was the essence of it. He said he was hoping he could go to 5 against 2, but it was frustrating for the power play. And the power play, of course, was getting the puck to Lanny McDonald on his off wing for his one-timer, as most are today with the 1-3-1. But minor hockey level, moving the puck and getting open and being able to take advantage of the space and time to ideally one-time shoot. To me, at the U13 level, power play is a disadvantage because you can pressure and they can't execute plays. So it's an evolving thing, and everybody struggles with it at every level in terms of getting success. But that drill for anybody out there, 5 against 1, and the one I talked to a coach that was doing the drill, and they said that it really wasn't working too well because the penalty killers were lazy. And I said, well, it's a penalty killing drill. One skater, stop and start, beeline skating, lead with the stick for 10 seconds. If you're a penalty killer, that's what you have to do in D zone, 5-on-5. Practice this tactical skating skill to stop and start, straight line skate. And when you change, there's 2 players on the ice while you're changing. It's just, you're teaching the penalty killers as well, but they can't be lazy. They can't just stand around out there. They've got to really force the power play people to move the puck under pressure.
I sent my practice plan in the chat, so if anybody wonders about the game, there's a description of it there.
Tom, I assume you play it in zone, or you play it full ice?
For this one here, for that game?
Yeah, the Badger Bob.
Oh,
yeah,
the metal.
That's just
Yeah.
one. So they're all at the blue line. So the team that's killing is lined up, just outside the blue line.
Yeah, I know. I just wanted to
Oh.
clarify for everybody else up there.
Yeah, okay. And
Because
we played another game earlier in the week, because you got 17 skaters in minor hockey, so 5-on-5, and then the last defender doesn't come in the zone, so it's 5-on-4 at each end. And that's a good game for minor hockey when you don't have 8 defensemen, 4 lines, and we did it 6-on-5 as well. We played 6-on-6, and then the last defender didn't go in their defensive zone, so they get to practice. That's the first time I've ever done that. 6-on-5 at each end, just trying to figure out ways how how to practice that.
But just to follow up on that Badger Bob thing, then, and I know I've said this before on here, but I've done it with almost every team that I've coached, including some very, very low-skilled teams at University of Vermont. If you're a coach who faces pressure penalty killing a lot, it's the single best thing you can do to encourage your power play to move the puck quickly, to develop habits, to think ahead. Like when I get it, I need to move it. And we always do it 5 against 2. And like a normal power play in a game, you need to preload your players. Like the power play is going to fail 70 to 80 to 85% of the time. It's just the way it is. And it's the same in Badger Bob. You're going to fail a lot, but it's about developing the think ahead skills, the look around, head in a swivel skills, the verbal communication skills, the puck recovery skills, and one touch passing, quick passing, no dust passing. It's the single best thing you can do I think, to help your power play. And you need to get those 2 penalty killers just simply chasing the puck for 8 or 10 seconds before they change. Like, don't stand around it all. Even when you think you're going to be way too late, you just got to pressure the puck. And it's the best thing you can do for your team. I've seen remarkable puck movement improvement very quickly with very low skilled teams when you do it. So it all depends on how you present it.
How I do it, Tim, is the contest is they go through it once with 1. So the whole defending team goes 1, and then they go 2. So, it kind of makes it a little harder, but the 2 is, then they really have to be on their toes.
Yeah, and you need to encourage the power play to use their structure as much as they can when they do get control. And we also, when the players are changing, we still encourage the power play. Like, keep trying to score while the players are changing. Try to use your structure. Try to think of it as a game as much as you can, where there's 4 players and not just 2 or none out there. But it's a great drill.
Tim, can you talk about your rodeo on penalty kill for the listeners?
Well, it's not my rodeo, but I stole it from Derek Laxdal, I believe it was. It was his term when he was coaching Edmonton in the Western League. But and we even showed the girls of Denmark some rodeo, even though they weren't familiar. I showed them a 10-second bull ride or an 8-second bull ride. It's just the concept that, like bull riding at the rodeo, if you stay on the bull for 8 seconds, you get a score. If you fall off before 8 seconds, get bucked off, you don't get a score. But it's the concept of that 8-second time frame when you're penalty killing. If you're getting all 4 people to pressure together, try to pressure for 8 seconds minimum, like everybody running, pressuring, chasing for 8 to 10 seconds. Very, very effective, and it's obviously extremely prevalent in the NHL these days, real high pressure penalty killing. So once the pressure is initiated, the rodeo term comes in. Try to keep the pressure on, all as a unit of 4 penalty killers. Try to keep the pressure on for 8 to 10 seconds, it gives you a great chance to create a turnover, get the puck out.
So the gate goes open when there's a free puck or a bobbled puck. Is that it?
Yeah, you need your reads, like when to pressure. Like we always pressure on rims. After a shot by the power play is a great time to initiate pressure because there's no possession. If there's a bobbled puck, like where there's no possession, or like really importantly, if the power play gets two people in really small space, that's a good time to pressure. Or the power play turns their back, so their back is to the middle of the rink where they can't see all their options. That's a good time to pressure. So you need to, help them learn what some of the pressure reads are, for sure.
Peter,
go ahead.
Yeah, well, it just kind of goes back to the point you were making. I have a question about, and what Greg brought up about the stats there, and the importance of those completed passes. So there's a number for percentage for power play. You have this number, you're good. Yeah, penalty kill, you have a certain number, you're good. Shots on goal, that's what we're aiming for. So has this evolved yet to where there is a percentage of completed passes or number of completed passes that you're actually shooting for in a game?
Well, I can maybe interject there, Wally, because Peter and Tom would be aware because he was part of it 30 years ago at University of Calgary. We took this stat. We did pass efficiency through the game. Our friend Stuart Behe put it on a big, huge spreadsheet. It was introduced, I think, the year before by God rest his soul, Bob Murdoch. He came back from San Jose. And anyway, to get to your question, we pretty quickly developed targets for our team, and they're going to be different for different teams. We had a really skilled team, but we realized pretty quickly that when we had an effective power play generating scoring chances, we were making on the order, if I believe, and Tom might help me remember it correctly, 11 or 12 completed passes a minute on the power play. So you imagine pretty quick puck movement. When we were doing that, we had success on the power play. And when we, as a team, touched the puck, like we had a real good team, and we would touch the puck in good games on the order of 400 or 500 times a game. And when we played poorly, we touched the puck, 270, 300 times a game, quite a marked difference. And we ended up giving defensemen a passing efficiency target of 80% or higher. And by passing efficiency, I mean a completed pass, but we also gave them credit if, because there are times in the game where the best play for a defenseman or the smart play is to just clear the puck out. So as long as they didn't have a really obvious second or obvious passing option where we could maintain possession, we gave them a plus for their puck touch if they cleared the zone, if they're under pressure. So there's a lot that goes into the stats, but we had huge spreadsheets that were really, really effective and really provided some great feedback for the players over time.
That's a benefit of having Stuart being an engineer. He loved that stuff.
Oh, yeah. And it'll be interesting over time as the NHL tracks all this stuff. I'm sure we'll come up with a stat that says, hey, you need, this number of completed passes on a power play to effectively generate scoring chances, or whatever the question is.
Well, what Mudd said about that, he said that if his team was 65% on, either making a pass or clearing a zone, they had a good chance of winning. If they were 60%, they got clobbered. And if they were 70%, they usually ran away with the game. So that he said it was, when he coached for Winnipeg, that was the only stat that he really paid attention to.
Yeah.
Puck management, I guess, eh?
Yeah. And obviously, the defenseman, generally speaking, would have a higher percent
Yeah,
target.
they have to be higher.
Yeah, like
They're
the forward.
pretty costly.
Yeah, forwards in the offensive zone, like 70% would be a great passing percentage. Like 70% of the time, you do something positive with the puck because you're under more pressure and more things can happen. But that's kind of the guide that we went by back then, and that's like 30 years ago. Bob was ahead of the game.
I'd like to simplify that, Peter. In Tom's case, with U13 girls hockey, I would like to experiment with completed passes for both teams. The team that completes the most passes, what is the outcome? And it's interesting because I'm assuming that if you outpass a team significantly, like 50 to 10 or 40 to 10, you should win. And it sort of makes sense, but I'm not sure it's true. I watched an under 15 game, and the team I was working with outpassed the opponent 42 to 12, but lost 7-3. And
Get
but
a new
there were
goalie.
no, yeah, that played a part in it, but part of it was a breakdown on the forecheck where they could go coast to coast with the puck at will. And that's what that team tends to do. So, Tom, when you play that team, you better not let that puck carrier go coast to coast because they are not going to pass at all.
Well, that's what I think in minor hockey. That's our kind of mantra is we play, most of the teams we play 1-on-5. So we know we have to be really good on defensive one-on-ones.
Yeah.
And we always back pressure the puck carrier. So it's a 1-on-2 for them. And then you usually get the puck back if the other team doesn't pass.
Yeah.
But if you're not good on one-on-ones, and we've done your thing with no sticks and this kind of stuff, you're not good on one-on-ones, and that good player that can beat everybody is going to beat everybody.
Yeah.
Probably watching the Flames too much if they don't have their sticks on the ice and not good one-on-one.
Pulls the door off. On 2-on-1s, he gets beat every time. I don't know what he does.
Oh man. We digress. Greg, one of the things for me, I was just talking about this the other day. I was mentioning this to some friends of mine. One of the shot stats, or one of the stats I wish they would change in the NHL is the shot block stats. Like, when I was coaching in Atlanta, there was a player, we had a defender who became an NHL coach, but he used to blow his own horn about how he was leading, or was one of the leading defensemen in the league with shot blocks. And I never saw him once deliberately try to block a shot. Like he was, he'd get hit with the puck, like a shot from the point, and he'd be going about his business as he should be in front of the net, maybe trying to tie up a stick or something like that. And the puck would hit him, and they give him credit for blocking a shot. And like why they do that, I have no idea. If the puck hits you, you get a credit for a shot block. There needs to be some intention or some deliberateness, I feel, like to get credit for blocking a shot. And it would be a pretty easy stat, I think. Wouldn't require much in the way of discretion to determine whether a player was deliberately trying to get in a shooting lane or deliberately trying to block a shot. But the shot block stats are, I just don't give them much credence because of that.
Well, why should we care about it, right? Like, it means you don't have the puck. You're having to solve a problem rather than maybe ensure that a problem doesn't occur in the first place. Like, I'd rather have a problem preventer than a problem solver. Someone who makes sure the shot never gets taken, that kind of stuff. So I'm with you. I think it's a relatively useless stat. I'm not sure on the difference between measuring it, whether it's on purpose or not makes much of a difference, because either way, the shot is getting blocked, and that's what we're
Well,
trying
for
to
me, it
get
makes a
at.
difference.
But I mean, from a
So-
coaching standpoint, I
yeah,
see your
but
point.
from a coaching standpoint, in terms of valuing a player, I think whether it's deliberate or not deliberate is really important. And I like don't get me wrong. Shot blocking is a huge part of being an effective player, an effective team. But the deliberateness of it is my point. Like if it just, I got my back turned, puck hits me in the back or in the butt because it happened to be in the right place randomly. I don't feel like I should be credited as a player for that. Anyway, just a little pet peeve of my own.
I think the game has changed today. Shot blocking years ago, I know that, who's the European coach that he was talking at a clinic in Hockey Alberta advocating not shot blocking. He said the risk of injury with players, and he cited one of the Sundins breaking his arm, blocking a shot. He advocated no shot blocking. And he advocated getting in the shooting lane, making yourself big, staying up. And today they really don't shoot to score from the point. It's smart shooting. So you discourage the shot and they've got to get the puck through you. So I'm not sure that stat has got as much relevance in the game in the last 4 or 5 years, but point shooting now, kids are worried about their shot from the point, and to me, that's insignificant. If you can wrist from the point to facilitate a chance to score and keep the puck in the zone, I think that's going to be way more important. And so I'm not sure how significant shot blocking is going to be. I know that at that clinic, I spoke up and I said, and you're giving a clinic in Canada and telling us not to block shots. I said, I don't know how much success you're going to have making your point. I got an email from one of the attendees taking the course who had a kid that was hit in the chest and died from a shot block. So that made me think twice about this at a younger age, shot blocking. And I don't even know if coaches refer to it. Tom, do you talk about shot blocking or
Oh
just
yeah.
getting in the shooting lane?
Oh well, we practice it. We practice, getting in the lane and then going out. Getting the defensive position before going out. But I didn't. I've never taught that going down on one knee sideways one, and those kind of things. Just get the shin pads in the way, and controlled skating so they don't go sliding by the guy. And I think it's an important part of the game that that they block shots, especially point shots.
Yeah, you don't leave your feet except in desperation, of course, or if you're staring at something goes cross ice and the guy's staring at or the girl's staring at a 4x6 and you're a defenseman there, yeah, you might want to slide or get down on one knee to try to block the shot. You stay on your feet as much as you can, of course, but still, it's kind of a lost skill in lots of ways.
Well, that going down, players are so good with toe drags now and that. When the D's go down now, they just wait for him to slide by and pull the puck back.
Gives the
often
goalie a chance to recover, though. It gives the goalie more time to recover, so you're still accomplishing something.
Yeah, well, like you said, there's always a time and a place. But if I remember when the French coach with the Flames, they practice that every practice, the slide, eh?
Paget?
No,
Guy Chiron?
no, the more recent.
Oh, Hartley.
Yeah, Hartley.
Yeah.
I guess he's French.
Yeah.
But anyway, they practice. That was their kind of 2-on-1. I go watch their practices, and they practice that slide all the time.
Yeah, and I think I remember that as well, Tom. And that, again, it's not a never do this kind of thing for me. There's a time and a place for a defenseman use the full body slide on a 2-on-1. I wouldn't ever tell a defenseman you can't ever do this. It's a skill like anything else, but it's not something you want to default to all the time. It's a timing thing, and it's a hockey sense thing, and it can be very effective. Yeah, and I do remember them practicing, with Hartley.
Yeah, I've got all kinds of video of them practicing that slide. More than any other coach I ever saw.
Yeah.
He did angling a lot too.
Yeah, the one knee stick down is also very effective on a 2-on-1 to deny the pass and everything else. Yeah, a lot of skills.
Yeah, and you can get up from that.
Yeah.
Well, look, guys, I've run the gauntlet on the list here with Greg. I'm just curious, Greg, if you're back on board again. I heard the baby
Yep.
making a little bit of noise, but Craig, possibly you can chime in. I don't know how much of what we went on about you heard, but if you have anything at all to add, I'd sure appreciate it.
Shot blocking for me, I really don't care about it personally. I'd rather you just close down space in a controlled manner. That's most important for me on that. The only other thing I had on my side is just like when we talk about skating development, making sure there's a puck involved. So I call it puck-centric skating. Because if you look at any kind of skating with a puck, like the puck moves first and you do it in relation to the puck. And I know a lot of players that have great skating strides, but as soon as you put a puck in there, their mechanics and everything completely breaks down. It's really bad. And then I've seen the opposite where like mechanics kind of stink, but then you throw a puck in and suddenly their posture is better and it solves a lot of issues. So for me, getting pucks involved with skating development early and often is fantastic and something I'd love to see more of. So that would be my 2 cents and 2 things that I want to drop in there. I do have to run, but Wally, thanks for putting this together as always. Good seeing everyone.
Yeah, thanks, Greg.
Thanks very much, Craig.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we'll
Okay.
see everybody next week, I guess.
Are you in Phoenix now, Tim?
No, here till I'm going down on the 7th of November. Pretty much, I might come back. I get to come back for a week, but stay till just after Christmas. So you're gonna get to see the Canada-U.S. game. There's supposed to be a Canada-U.S. game, women, in Tempe on the 8th. So I got Leslie at Hockey Canada has kindly, hopefully arranged for 4 tickets. So it'll be fun to go see. Looking forward to it.
Okay.
Wally, I have a quick ask for you if I could.
Yep.
You do such a great job when you send these out after you kind of go through, filter, make clips and that kind of thing.
Yep.
You had made a mention of, and it was brief, but I love the point because you're sort of describing what youth hockey seems to be a lot of around here anyway, about the coaches calling the game from the, as opposed to, just nonstop, just like every command, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to in between shifts, assistant coaches, or in between periods, the head coach explain what the point is we're trying to make. Is there a way you could sort of clip that out?
Yeah, I just made a note of it. Last week, as soon as this is done, I'm going to try to record it. I've recorded it. I'm going to try to see if I can record it so that I can edit it. Last week it didn't turn out. I couldn't. I tried like heck to record. I recorded it, but I couldn't download it onto my top. So I will definitely do it. The session was great, but I've earmarked that topic. Is there anything else that you guys think would be, having gone through everything? I can break it down relative to the topics that I brought up with Greg, but you're right. That feedback idea is major at minor hockey.
Can I chime in on that, Wally?
Yes.
Joan Vickers did a lot of research in that and wrote this little booklet about it. And her thing about feedback is you draw a straight line and you don't say anything to the player. it's going to go like this, a little bit, it's a little bit all the time. You don't talk to them all the time. But if they do something exceptional, you say something, or if they do something way below, that you got to make a correction. That's the feedback you do instead of doing a play-by-play as the game's going on, because they just shut you down. So that when you're saying something, it's significant, because she says, you don't want the player to be there listening to you and trying to please you. They shouldn't be there to try and make you happy. They should be out there trying to play the game well. So I always value that research she did.
Yeah, I just wrote down significant feedback.
Yeah.
That's specific feedback. And
Decision Training was their booklet, I think, called.
yeah.
I have to run, but I want to make, if I could, one last point for you
Yep.
fellas. So my wife is a big Red Sox fan, and listening to you guys talk about Calgary, who is about 6 games into the season, you remind me a lot about when she's 6 games into the season with the Red Sox. There's a lot of games left, boys. There's a lot of games left. That's all I'll say.
Last year this time they were 5-1.
The habits are well established.
Yes, I don't disagree. It's just fun listening to you guys. I appreciate it. I got to run. My latest project is my son is actually moving, which I'm really excited about because he actually bought the house next door to us. So we're going to have our own little compound. So I'm excited about that. But I just thought I'd bring that up. You guys are great. I appreciate you.
Good for you.
Okay.
Take care, Peter.
See you next
All right,
night. See you next week, guys.
Okay. Now, Tim, I don't know if he's off here. I don't know if you're interested in coffee tomorrow, Tom, but I'm available anytime. I've got things that I would like to run by you on in my role. I'm having some challenges with. I'm going to Roberta's practice tonight, and I was going to meet with her and her Austin after, but one of the parents, hockey knowledgeable parents who called me, is meeting with her